Hi, my name is Emma and welcome to my podcast, The Ups and Downs of Women's Sports. In this podcast, I will address the ups and downs of women's sport. I'll be in conversation with various women in different sporting fields to talk about their experiences and goals for the future. In my first podcast, I will be speaking to Erin Nayler. For those of you who don't know who Erin Nayler is a professional goalkeeper who plays for Reading in the New Zealand national team. I'm a massive fan of Erin Nayler's. As an ex-goalkeeper myself, I respect and look up to her. She's just as good, if not better, than any of the main goalkeepers. So, I want you to listen to this podcast to hear about her story and her career. Thank you. Welcome to my podcast. Thank you for joining me. This is Erin Nayler. She's a professional footballer for New Zealand and Reading. Would you like to introduce yourself and say what you do for people who don't really know who you are?
Yeah, so firstly, thanks Emma for having me on. It's great to be chatting to you. So as you said, I'm a goalkeeper for Reading and I'm also a goalkeeper for the New Zealand national team. I've been to 3 World Cups and 2 Olympic Games, and hopefully I'll be going to the Tokyo Olympic Games coming up as well. But yeah, I'm a professional goalkeeper and that's my career, and yeah, I love it.
A goalkeeper's the best position on the field. I was a goalkeeper myself, and I've had a few injuries in the past. I broke my arm. That's quite funny, but it's not funny. I saved my team from losing, and we got into the semi-final and then got back onto the field again, and then my knee popped out, so then I had to give it up.
Oh gosh.
Which was,
yeah,
it was really, really sore. Lying on a curb on the side of the road's not very the best place to be lying with all the cars driving past. So I sadly didn't get very long to play football. But it is a great position, although I'm sure many would not agree with us. I think you have to be a certain kind of person to go and goal. If you weren't a goalkeeper, what position would you want to play?
I would absolutely be a striker.
Yeah, I don't really like...
I can't imagine being anywhere else on the field. I just think the striker, they get all the glory. They can make as many mistakes as they want and it will never be their fault. So,
yeah, because if you're a defender, you get blamed for everything.
yeah, exactly. Same with being a goalkeeper.
Yeah. Has the lockdown affected the women's game, do you think? Has it made people watch it more, or would the viewings just be around the same?
That's a good question. I actually don't know, but I'm assuming because we were in lockdown and there wasn't much else on and women's football kept going in most cases, I would say that more people would be watching it. So it would be interesting to see the numbers on that, actually, to see if it has grown the game. But there was definitely a lot of uncertainty for the players in the beginning, not knowing how women's football was going to be affected. But it seems to have been fine. And I mean, everyone I know, the teams have kept going and we're all back into professional environments. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing to be kept active during lockdown, because I think everyone else sort of was just like locked in. They couldn't really do anything. So it was good to have something to keep your mind focused on, you know, and
yeah, definitely.
And it was good to get out and talk to people, and you know, because some people actually couldn't get out and talk to people because How does it feel that New Zealand are going to be hosting the next World Cup?
It is super exciting and I can't wait for the next 2 years to go fast enough. I think playing a World Cup at home is going to be something I could never have dreamed of, and I think having the opening game at home as well is so exciting to be able to play in front of family and friends, in front of hopefully a packed out stadium. And I'm also really excited to show all the friends I've made overseas that are in national teams how beautiful New Zealand is.
Yeah, I always wanted to go to New Zealand. It's definitely at the top of my bucket list to go. And
well, maybe the World Cup. You could come and watch.
Yeah, and support New Zealand. Yeah, I think. Well,
there you go.
Support New Zealand. New Zealand to win. So you're obviously hosting it with Australia. Is there like some sort of rivalry there between you and Australia, or is it?
Yeah, it's sort of a love-hate relationship, I think. When it comes to sports, it's usually we're pretty big rivals. But just today, actually, there was the Australia-New Zealand travel bubble just opened. So everyone's super excited about that. And most of the time, we kind of love each other as countries. But when it comes to sport, there's definitely a rivalry. And we love playing Australia, our New Zealand national team, because it's always such a competitive game and it's usually a very tight game. But I think we've come together to host this World Cup. I think it'll be pretty cool. It'll be really interesting to see if we get through the group stages and maybe we play each other. That would be funny.
What if New Zealand and Australia were in the World Cup final?
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Who's the best player you've played up against?
Yeah, I would say the best goalkeeper, Hope Solo.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was always a big fan of hers, and I used to watch her on YouTube, and then when I got to stand at the opposite side of the field to her, it was a pretty amazing feeling. But a lot of the US, I played against some many great players, but some of the top players would be her, Abby Wambach, Alex Morgan, Le Sommer from the French national team. She's probably one of the best players in the world. There's a lot, but those ones stand out to me.
What is your view on the gender pay gap with the women's game? Because there's been a lot of controversy about that. You know, the US women's national team have come out and talked about that, but never really. It's got up to the top, but it hasn't really, nothing's been done about it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think what has happened, it hasn't happened enough or like throughout the women's game. So, I mean, we are seeing improvements in terms of some players' salaries. So some of the best players in the world will be earning a lot of money now. Still not comparable at all to what the men are earning. But it's only probably less than 1% of women's players are really starting to close that gap. And then you have a lot of players that are on probably less than minimum wage. I'd say the majority are probably on minimum wage. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done. And the gap is just crazy. And I'm not sure how that gap is going to get closed. But I think if we can keep taking steps towards that, then, hopefully, eventually we'll get there.
Do you think the men's pay should come down or...
Yeah, I always talk about this a lot. I think that the amount they get paid on a weekly basis is just insane. But yeah, I guess there's a lot of politics and there's a lot more stuff to think about when it comes to that. But I think they earn too much money, to be honest. But I think if there's any way we can bring them down and bring us up so that it's a little more even, then that's probably the best way to go about it.
Yeah, because I talk about this sometimes with my family, and they'd be like, just in general, like if a woman goes and be like, say, a doctor or whatever, like branded a man's job, like I can't deal with that. They're like, oh, but why should a woman get paid more than a man? Why should, I'm sitting there going, why are you saying that? Like a woman can do just as good a job as a man, basically.
Completely agree. But yeah, there's definitely a lot to be done in that space.
Definitely.
But I think the more that players speak up about it, hopefully the quicker it'll move forward. And also it's not just that, it's also we need to get the viewing numbers up and we need people to support women's sport more. I think that would help close the gap as well.
It definitely would. So who inspired you the most to play football?
My dad and my brothers. So my dad was a footballer, and I used to always go and watch his games when I was younger. And then my younger brothers got into it, and then I just started going down to training sessions with them and really loved it and enjoyed my own team. So I'd say they were my biggest inspirations.
Did you play with a boys' team, or was there a girls' team for girls in New Zealand?
There were girls teams when I was growing up, but I played with the boys team until I got to the age, I think it was 14, we had to split into a all girls team. So I played with boys up until that level, but I love playing with the boys. I was a lot more competitive. I had a competitive streak to show that girls could be better than boys on the field. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, but like me, when I was at primary school, like I literally just wanted to be playing football, and I always tried to be better than the boys, and it paid off because it was girls versus boys, and the girls ended up beating the boys. So I was like, yo.
Yeah.
Was it hard to adapt to the time zones here in the UK and Ireland? Because in New Zealand, yous are 12 hours ahead of us. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that hard to adapt, or were you just like, oh, this is pretty easy?
I'm quite used to it from traveling a lot with the national team. So we often have to fly all over the world, and we'll get to a new place, which is usually the furthest place away from New Zealand for some reason. And we only have a few days to adapt, and then we have to play a game. So we've played the US off the back of 3 days lead in time from when we got off the plane to playing them. So it's really difficult to deal with. But I think it takes a bit of adjusting. And I remember my flight over here to Reading, it was a 50-hour flight because of COVID. So it was two 12-hour flights with like a really, really long layover. It was some crazy time, like 15 hours or something. So it was a lot of flying. And I trained the first day I got here, which was, I'd never recommend that.
No.
So I was not very sharp that day. But yeah, you always adjust. You give it a week or 2 weeks, and yeah, you usually come right.
Oh my God, playing the first day you got here. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was...
Most players wouldn't actually do that, just to let you know.
So you've played in France for Bordeaux.
Mm-hmm.
You had to learn French, but do you still, I don't know, like speak French sometimes? Or, like say if you were texting like a French player, would you use French or English? Or do you have any other languages that you speak?
I can understand French. I can speak it as well. I can kind of have a conversation, but it was a very difficult language to pick up. They speak, the accent's very hard, and they speak very fast. So I was there for 4 years, and I only just got the grasp of it at the end of those 4 years. So it is a difficult language, and I can still understand it. And every now and then I'll try and watch something in French just to kind of refresh my memory. But I don't speak any other languages. I am learning Māori at the moment, which is the New Zealand native language, but that's also very difficult. But yeah.
I was actually teaching myself German in the first lockdown that we had over here. First day, no, just couldn't be bothered. It's just too hard to learn, and so then I settled for Spanish, and I got this like book thing. It hasn't been open since. It
is hard. So you have to motivate yourself. And if you're not in the country, it is very, very difficult to do that. Because I took French in school and I didn't remember one word of it when I got to France.
Same, we had to learn Irish and stuff because we're like Irish. We speak Irish over here sometimes, or down south. And
okay,
my cousins would have a full scale Irish conversation. You could be sitting at the table and they're just like I went to school and I forgot everything as soon as I left, and I was like, I feel so ashamed. Could you teach me some New Zealand slang, and then I'll teach you some Irish slang.
Yeah, sure. So one thing we always say is sweet as, which is like it's really cool. We also say yeah, nah, which confuses a lot of people. So if someone says, for example, do you want this or do you want that? We'll say yeah, nah, and it actually means no. But that
Okay.
is very confusing. What other slang do we have? This isn't slang, but we say kia ora, which is hello, in Māori.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I can think of off the top of my head.
So we have lethal. Do you know what that means?
Lethal, yeah. I think so. Like deadly, but
Yeah.
like she's like lethal on the field.
Yeah.
Okay.
I or no.
No, I don't know that one.
So basically, you'd be like, do you want a drink? You'd be like, I, which means yes, or no means no. This
Okay.
this one is a bit funny-ish. Having the baldy notion. Do you know what that means?
I don't even know what you said, to be honest.
Basically, haven't a baldy notion means you've got no idea. So
Okay.
you did get it right. You had no idea. So you did get it.
Here we go. Yeah.
So these are just like a quick fire round thing. So I just ask you questions and you sort of answer them.
Mm-hmm.
3 famous people you'd want to have at a dinner party.
Oh my goodness. Chelsea Handler. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's hilarious. David Goggins. He's a extreme. I don't know. He's written a book. He's like an extreme athlete, sort of. Very interesting person. So Chelsea Handler, David Goggins, and my third one. Oh, that's tough. Maybe Joe Rogan. I listen to a lot of his podcasts and I find him very interesting.
Marta or Morgan?
Marta.
I'd probably have to go for Morgan. Well, they're both good footballers. Like, you know, you couldn't really pick one if you had to, because they're that good.
Yeah, they're both very good and very different players.
Yeah, definitely. Do you like horror films or comedy films?
Oh, they're both. Those are both my 2 favorite genres, so that's a tough one. I'm gonna go horror.
Yeah, I go horror as well. I was watching a horror movie the other night and I couldn't go to sleep. I was laying awake all night, like, because every time I heard something, I was like, something's going to possess me or something's going to haunt me. But
What movie was that?
Insidious, it's on Netflix. It's like
Yeah,
creep.
I think I've seen that one.
I seen the second one and it was, oh my god, like, and then I seen the Nun. I watched it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was just sitting there with my mum and like she was like sitting fine as anything and like it was sort of like a jumpy film and I was just like sitting jumping going like everything, like I had this like bowl of crisps and everything just went everywhere. I don't know why I watch them, but I love them. But you know, one word your friends would use to describe you.
This is really boring, but nice. That's so boring. I should have thought of something better than that.
If I was going back to play football, what advice would you give me?
I would just say to enjoy it. I think when I was younger, I never really thought that I would get to where I am today. But I think just enjoy, like actually being on the field, enjoying the game, not feeling the pressure allowed me to grow as a player. And then from that, when I did start to take it more seriously, I could always tap back into why I started playing football in the first place. If there was any times where I was struggling, I'd be like, well, this is why I play it, because of these memories. So I think as long as you can enjoy it, that's the main thing.
If you weren't a footballer, what would you be?
I always wanted to be a forensic scientist. So
Oh, no way.
it's a very different to a footballer. But yeah, probably something to do in the sciences. I do have a science degree, so yeah.
Was it like a really hard decision to leave New Zealand, or were you like, oh, you know what? It's going to be okay?
Yeah, it was. When I first left, it wasn't too hard because I was really excited to start my professional career. But every time I went home and had to leave again, it got harder and harder, leaving family and just leaving New Zealand, which is a beautiful country. And now with this latest contract I got, I left in the middle of the pandemic. So there was a lot of doubt and a lot of uncertainty about whether I should actually leave and whether I'd be able to get home. But I think I made the right decision, and I love what I do. So yeah, it's hard, but it's worthwhile.
So you haven't been home since last year?
Yeah, so last time I went home was actually this time last year.
Oh, that's actually so sad. Oh.
That's actually quite recent. Normally I would go 2 years or so without going home.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That'd be me.
Yeah, it's a long time.
That'd be me. If I moved to New Zealand, I'd be like, bye. Just, no. If I was going there to New Zealand when COVID, if it ever leaves, what are the best places to go, if you have any in mind?
Well, I am a bit biased. I love Northland, so it's right at the top of the country. So I grew up on the beach there in my summer holidays, and it is just a beautiful place. It's in the winter, it doesn't really get too cold. So I'd recommend Northland. Queenstown is a very big, popular area, which is right down the bottom of New Zealand. Milford Sound is very beautiful. So yeah, those three would be, top of my mind. Yeah, and West Coast is beautiful, really rugged, and not many people live there, so that's pretty cool.
I'd love to go to New Zealand. It's where I really want to go. I don't know why, but like it's just a place where I just want to just go and live, and I don't know.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on, sharing your sporting story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. It's cool to be asked to come onto the podcast. I appreciate it.